So we have read about 12 chapters. Sometimes we were just hearing a little bit, but sometimes we were dwelling on some specific moments. Anyway, when we are reading, we are concentrating on something. Sometimes we can miss something, but it's just the human nature. We're just concentrating on something and we are reading. So that's why we're going to be reading constantly. Well, because our age is changing, the situations are changing, and Bhagavad Gita opens up differently for everyone. But in total, as a material existence of a human, it can be compared with a disease that has to be healed. The symptoms of the disease are, of course, sufferings. There are sufferings, there are always sufferings in this life. This aspect of life is ever existing. It's either inconvenience, something uncomfortable, or the job is not convenient, or the relations with people. There are always some moments that we can pay attention to. It's like a disease. And this disease is manifested, is in the kind of a disease activity, sick activity. We have to do something in order to get rid of the sufferings. But the sufferings, they keep on going, because actions, they actually give birth to new sufferings. And this is karma. That he is considered as karma yoga, which is the actual medicine for sufferings. If something is really hard to understand, and of course we want to have some more happiness, it's jnana yoga. Jnana yoga means the medicine for these sufferings. It's the medicine for mind. If we add some yoga, we add some medicine. So this is the direction of healing. Yoga is an uprising. It's a vertical rise. But if we search for something material, it will go along a horizontal plane. If you want to look for some better places in the material world, we're going to be looking for those in a horizontal plane. But horizontal is always the same, it never changes. So Kṛṣṇa says that even at the higher planets, there are also some kind of sufferings. I remember in Bhagavata Puranas, Kṛṣṇa says, Udavi. He says that the sufferings and enjoy are actually equal on the earth. Well, this was really surprising. Even at the paradise planets, at the higher planets, where everybody thinks that there are no sufferings. Well, there are some sufferings, but they are kind of elevated. Their nature is different. So I've heard an example that if a person has damaged his chair or something, he's not going through all this physical and mental pain if his Mercedes, a very expensive car, got destroyed, got damaged, and this causes a lot of sufferings. You see, even the tiny things in the material world, they can cause a lot of sufferings to us. Well, just imagine your home is like a museum, like a hermitage. Well, of course, if something gets damaged, you will be taking it too seriously. If something really expensive gets damaged. So the higher standards we have, the higher sufferings are. And this is on a horizontal plane, not a vertical one. So just like a man going up the mountain vertically, and then from the mountain's peak observing the city where he used to live, he sees the city's life, how everything's functioning and moving around, but he doesn't feel the connection with it anymore. So we can compare it to this moment. or when we are flying in an airplane at an elevation of 10,000 meters. Everything is so tiny, everything is so small, so insignificant. So this is a vertical plane. Even if we go further from the orbit of the Earth, we will just lose the sight of our planet. There are so many grandiose phenomena in our universe, and compared to which Earth is almost not existent. It's really small. So this vertical helps us that the point of view can be different, but the vertical plane means something different. The joy, happiness. And on the vertical plane, happiness that is rising up, and that's why the lower taste does not attract anymore, because there's a higher taste. So in Mahabharata somewhere, this vertical plane is also described. If the earth happiness multiplied by 100 times, so that's what it's going to be. This is going to be equal to the happiness in the paradise planet. But if paradise planet's happiness multiplied by 100 times, this will be Indra's happiness, the Lord of the paradise planets. If Indra's happiness multiplied by 100 times, this will be Brahman's happiness. If Brahman's happiness multiplied by 100 times, this will be Shiva's happiness. And if Shiva's happiness multiplied by 100 times, this will be Vishnu's happiness. Well, and there it just goes unlimitless. So happiness is the nature. It's an unlimited happiness. And this world is called the oceans of suffering. So these are two extremes, spirit and matter. So today we are reading the 13th chapter, nature, the enjoyer, and the consciousness. Three categories that contain almost everything in this chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So this topic is going to be a little bit more difficult. It's rather philosophical. Probably we won't go so deep into details, but this chapter gives us everything. So if we say nature, there can be a lot of meanings to it. It can be spiritual nature, material nature. The enjoyer is the one who enjoys everything. You see, the nature of a living being is to enjoy. So we're considering God as a living being, Purusham. That is the higher, the supreme enjoyer. Well, because we are a living being, this is our nature. Our nature is to enjoy. And in this world, we are looking for happiness. And we do everything possible in order to be happy. The food should be tasty. Our homes must be comfortable. All the conveniences that we have. So we want to have happiness in our home, our parents and our children. And so we are doing everything just to be happy. And this is Purusham. So just observe every living being. It is achieving the joy, the happiness. Fish is coming up in order to get the sun rays, to get warm. This is the energy of life. The joy is also considered as a super energy. When a person is happy, he's got some extra energy. When he is sad, he lacks some power, he lacks some strength. So the supreme enjoyer, he has this supreme power. Power in everything. Happiness and strength and knowledge and beauty. This is all called Purusham. Many aspects. So the joy is connected with the knowledge and eternity. When we are enjoying something, we don't want it to stop. So we always want it to be going forever. Happiness together with the eternity. Temporary happiness leads us to heavy sufferings. A person used to be happy but not happy anymore. And it's not going to happen to him again. achieving the happiness and eternity should be considered as just one key. Happiness cannot be just euphorical, just silly happiness of a drug addict or an alcoholic in just a dumb condition, in an ignorance condition. So there is a happiness in knowledge. These are three categories: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternity, Chit, knowledge, Ananda, bliss, unlimited bliss. Out of these three, the central moment uniting everything, the energy of Chit, consciousness. So we are reading this chapter today, and it's connected with our nature of Chit, the knowledge. And understanding some things, just some terminology, we may approach these things factually. The eternity, knowledge, and bliss. So this is the power of Bhagavad-gītā. It touches vivid centers of our consciousness. All the Norway's conjunctions, even the seven chakras that we have. So Bhagavad-gītā touches all of these chakras. So and today we are considering the highest chakra, above the feelings. So we'll take a look at it with quite a creativity, but it will be more philosophical today, not just creative. So when person is looking at people, he sees some business capabilities, but at some other people, he can take a look at a different aspect. So if you take a pine forest, an artist can think that, wow, that's so beautiful. And he can also think, okay, how many cubic meters of woods can I extract? Maybe I can build some houses in here. I can get some revenue. You see, views of people can be different. These are different chakras. So that's why we're seeing it using different chakras. So today we're using our highest chakra. So even if this chapter opens up for us today, we can get some enlightenment probably. So the first two texts. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Kṛṣṇa, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." So, once again, Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, I want to know about nature, the Prakriti, Purusha, the one who is enjoying, the field, and the knower of the field, and also what knowledge is, and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." It's quite unexpectable. So we've read 12 chapters, and this journey is quite unexpectable. Well, based on the materialistic experience, when Krishna says, "You're very dear to me," well, it's very pleasant for me to hear that. There can be very dear to him. But here it says, something that we cannot feel is described here. So we think that under influence of feelings, the field of our activity is just around us. So we're trying to protect it, we put some limits to it. So we work. So we're protecting our field with feelings. But my consciousness is not here. My consciousness is in the body. And I perceive it thanks to my feelings. The feelings of my body. So the field of activities is only my body. All I can see is I can only use my eyes. I cannot see everything even in my room. There are so many dimensions in this room. I think of it as a field of activity, but factually it's not. But it's actually supposed to be together my thin body and my gross body. So let's take an example. An accommodation. There's a real science. So we have to build a house, we have to know how to do it, including the thin dimension as well. Field of activity encompasses everything. The intelligence and feelings. And in this body we also have some spiritual tendencies. It's a vast field of activity. But when we are just using our senses, we don't understand that much until there's a personality that can understand my internal world, my field of activity. That's why the world becomes still unknown, because I don't understand the reason of this world. So it means that this field of activity might be for someone else. Somebody is feeling this field with the feelings, probably the super soul. So my field of activity is only my body. Everything that is happening only in my mind. There's a philosophy. If someone has seen the movie Matrix, they have this conception, the idea of this movie. So everything that I can see, is it real? So my neurons, they send some impulses into my brain. It's only in my consciousness. But the reality, what is reality? Is it just my perception? But you see, all of us, they have different perception. That's what's called matrix. So you see, every one of us has a different program. Well, probably we consider this world is not real. What if it's just made up by my feelings, my mind, and my eyes? There's also this theory in this world, but Veda says this world is not a field of activity. It's pierced by the super soul, and it's also the field of activity, but it's not ours. Ours is only our body. So Kṛṣṇa says that the field of activity is our body. So I am the knower of the field, situated in the body. I'm giving life to this body. It's pierced by my consciousness. Well, it would have been really easy if it hadn't been that there are two persons understanding this field. You see how hard it is. So the super soul is actually piercing my field of activity. The unlimited super soul is actually inside of every living being. So there are two souls in my body. One category of a super soul and one is a personal soul. So we've already mentioned this example. Two birds sitting on a tree. So one bird is an individual soul, the other one is a super soul. There's a difference between them. They're sitting not just on one tree, but the difference is colossal. So one bird is really dependent on the fruits of these trees, and it's really worried about how many fruits there are. And it's either sour or sweet, it depends on the fruit. At some moment, there's a fruit of sadness comes into our life. Sometimes there's a fruit of depression. Sometimes there's a fruit of joy. So we feel everything in our body. Either we're sad or happy, so it's changing all the time. And the other bird is absolutely not dependable on the fruits. It tells us something different. What's said in Bhagavad-gītā. So do not get attached to this sweet fruit, because it's just temporary. When you eat it, it's over, and you'll be suffering. If you're attached to it, you'll be suffering. Do not suffer so much because of the sour fruits. It will just go away. It's all temporary. So it's all the same. Do not attach either to happiness, joy, or sadness. Well, we can understand it through our wisdom, because it's the instrument of God. Bhagavad-gītā teaches us yoga, that is coming to us from the super soul, using intelligence, feelings, but it's coming to us through the super soul, directly from the super soul to us, so that we could feel it spiritually, just like we feel some touches or smells. So we can use the same analogy in order to feel the super soul. The field of activity for the soul. So I have a field of activity. I'm a person. I'm personality. My kids, they also have a field of activity because they are personalities. And we communicate in order to understand each other's field of activity. We can also communicate with the God's field of activity if we understand, if we realize who He is. So that's what the philosophical topic of it. It's very difficult. O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. So Prabhupada, based on this verse, he gives us these signs. So he's a scientist who searches all this knowledge. There are a lot of scientists in this world, but Prabhupada used to say that, there's a lot of ignorance. Everything that you are trying to solve, trying to understand or find out. So Prabhupada said that all you are living in an ignorance mode. And he was usually asked, so what is knowledge in your understanding? He said, well, the knowledge is understanding yourself and the material nature. Atma Jnana, the knowledge of yourself, is the supreme knowledge. If you do not understand it, all the rest is ignorance. If you know everything around you but you don't know yourself, you have to be considered insane. It's called insanity. You have to know yourself first of all, and only after this there's another stage opens up. You have to know what your body is and the nature of it, and you have to know how to act in it. So that's when the scientific process will start. So first you have to know who you are, and all after this, all the paths will open up in front of you. It's like dogs racing. The cars are racing, the planes are flying, but where are they going? What is the meaning of it? Just to make some money? To have some sleep? To have some food? But there's a very strange civilization. Animals, they do not even have to speed up so much. They do it anyway. So why do we have all these technologies just to sleep and food? It all got so complicated. There's so much illusion about it. Nice cars, and we know the traffic rules, everything is so serious. But if you ask him, where are you going? The question is, where is he going? And if you get the answers, usually nothing serious. It's usually daily routine actions. Because our consciousness is very degraded, but the technologies are really impressive. So that's why Prabhupada, based on this verse, he was just bombing the science, saying that your science is ignorant. Well, the scientists, they used to say, well, yes, we don't know everything. But they also told him, you don't know everything as well. Yes, Prabhupada said, but I know who Kṛṣṇa is. You do not know Kṛṣṇa, that's why I'm better than you. Who is Kṛṣṇa, they asked. Kṛṣṇa is everything. Everything that is surrounding us. And they said, we don't know what it is. We didn't know what it was. He said, of course, you don't know a lot. You can understand it simultaneously. It's hard. You're searching grass and you're writing some theses about it. But if you learn who Kṛṣṇa is, the grass, everything about grass will open up before you. So that's a chapter that we are reading today. So text 4. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who the knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Well, you see, quite an intriguing thing. We have to know everything right now. So now we'll find out everything about our body. It's just, a couple of verses. So for Krishna, it's not a problem to describe this body. For us, yes, of course, it is difficult to understand that. I learned anatomy just a little bit. As an artist, it was just interesting. I was looking at some pictures just to understand the way we are constituted. And the most complicated system is the nervous system. The vascular system is already very difficult, all these capillaries and veins. But the nervous system turned out to be much more complicated. And in order to understand it, to learn it, to examine it, it's almost impossible. It's all very individual. It doesn't look like anything else. So you see, we are not exact copies of each other. We are all individual. So they search the body and they make some conclusions like, let's do this and let's do that. And now it turns out that the scientists, they want to create an artificial body and then replace the brain. So it will be easier. We will simplify everything. If we create an artificial man, there will be not such a complicated nervous system. We'll get a brain from a living being, from a person, and then input it into this artificial man. And this man-made body, the artificial body, will be living a long time. So the brain can live for up to minimum 300 years. And in conclusion, they haven't still searched the body. So let's see what Kṛṣṇa says about it. Do you really have to get rid of it? And how to deal it? So a lot of sages, they have searched the bodies and senses very detailedly. So Vedanta Sutra tells a lot about it. As Kṛṣṇa says about Vedanta Sutra, it is specially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So Kṛṣṇa has mentioned Vedanta Sutra, but if we start reading it, I think we will not understand anything. Not any of shlokas. It is such a complicated treatise in Sanskrit. So you have to have just a divine intelligence in order to understand Vedanta Sutra without any comments. Comments on Vedanta Sutra is called Srimad Bhagavatam, comprising 18,000 shlokas. All the deeds of gods are described there, the creation of the universe, different kinds of living beings, the creation of a planet and hierarchy. 18,000 shlokas. Each slok takes up to 1 month to examine. So that means we won't have enough time of our life in order to search it. So Kṛṣṇa says it's all described in the knowledge of cause and effect. Vedanta Sutra is a Vedic text, does not describe the details. Details are described for the people that do not actually believe something, that are hesitating. So if you hesitate, you need some more details. So it was a long time ago in some Russian village, they've created a radio. So they got all these wires connected to the radio. They put up a satellites, and then people were said that you will hear a voice from Moscow. So people got together, they started crossing, they started praying to God. Like, are you serious? They were really going to hear the voice from Moscow, thanks to the radio? And then they started hearing this voice from Moscow. So everybody almost fainted. But if you explain the people, so this thanks to the wires, people would understand it. So the point is that we don't believe in explanations, but we believe in the one who is explaining this thing. But if you can see that a sage is in front of you, a sacred person, if you understand his qualities, he's being truthful, the way he understands your feelings, you will start trusting him. It's just when you go to a doctor, you just start trusting him because he's trying to take care of you. So that's a Vedic approach. So we believe Kṛṣṇa, we trust Kṛṣṇa. We don't have that many details, so we have a strong belief, the super soul. So that's how we are getting the knowledge from the super soul. We don't have too many details to understand everything. So Kṛṣṇa just mentioned Vedanta Sutra and then he continued explaining the things because he is an authority. Of course, we need to understand something in details. So now text from 7 to 6, from 6 to 7. The 5 great elements. So count using your fingers. False ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, and also desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate of all these elements, the life symptoms and convictions, all these together in summary is the field of activities and its interactions. So this is the description of a material matter in just 4 lines. Well, of course, if scientists gets to it, it will take a lot of time for them to understand it. We can understand something hypothetically, but some knowledge is just behind our understanding. Because we are functioning as materialists, using the gross elements. I've heard one scientist, physicist, he said that ether is not a material matter. Ether, he says, is just a space. It's nothing, it's a void, it's a vacuum or something. It's just nothing, it's not material. Space is actually a thin matter. So that's why the whole universe is materialistic, but it's all inside the ether. So this is a materialistic surrounding, materialistic media. Not all physicists can understand it, of course. There are different scientists. Just like in the periodic table, the first was ether, not the hydrogen. As a chemical element, that was ether. So this is the media that contains everything. Someone's living in the water media, someone's living in the air media, in ether, in fire. But the space itself is also a material element already. So 5 gross elements. And even here we have some controversy. You know, even these ancient philosophers, they had different schools based on these 5 elements. So which element is the major one? Well, someone said earth. Only earth, because there can't be anything without the earth in life. The other one says no, it's air. You can't live without air. The other one said water, it gives life to everything. So they were arguing and proving the points limitlessly. And still they couldn't reach the agreement. Because matter of fact, that all together, these elements, they are existing together. It's just one solid thing. It's like a story of a hen and an egg. So all these material elements are combined. Only as a combination you can consider these elements. I can count how many boards there are here. I can understand the size. But altogether this is a table. You see, all these boards, they combine, creating a table. And then if you just take a look around, everything is combined. It's combination of one the same thing. So the false ego. False ego is a thin element, something that is supposed to connect us with the gross matter. It's a connecting element. Without the false ego, it's not possible to live in this material world, support your body. But the false ego is based on my understanding of myself. So the way I understand myself, depending on my understanding, I get my body. So how does it work? Well, so there's a person, a living person. So it eats, it drinks, it reproduces, and enjoys the life. So some people can say, well, he's living his life like a pig. And he might say, so, okay, what's wrong with it? This is my life. I like it. So this is false ego. If I say, I'm a person, but someone say, you're a pig. No, I don't want to be living like a pig. So this is the false ego. A dog has another kind of false ego. It lives its life depending on its body. So false ego is like a matrix according to which there are numerous forms of lives are created. So depending on what I understand, who I am, and what I have deserved. For example, I deserve some award. Someone is born as a bird, as a peacock, or as a parrot. So it's got these beautiful wings, just a firework of wings and feathers. So when an evolutionist is asked, what's the sense in these feathers? So why is it so, so interesting? These feathers, they're so beautiful. What sense does it make? And if you take a look at the parrot, he is proud of it, of its beauty. So it's called hankara. It's an award. A parrot thinks of itself as a very beautiful creature. There are people just like parrots. If they look in the mirror all the time, so in the next life, they will not need any mirror. And here, in order to develop hankara, we don't need the mirror. You know that sane people, they do not look at the mirror, so they don't do it. So that's the way we do. We're looking in the mirror from this side, from another side, and then we think of ourselves. Well, for women, it is quite okay, it's understandable. But for men, it's not really good. If you are looking in the mirror for too long, if you're a man, well, take just one tiny, small mirror for yourself, and it will be okay for you, man. Well, of course, I'm sorry for what I'm saying, because I don't believe women will just get rid of the mirrors, because anywhere you go, there are always mirrors, even in an elevator. So now the mirror is an essential thing for the civilization's development, but no one even knows about it. In some legends, it is said that the Lucifer actually gave the mirror to the person. And that's how the person got actually involved in this process, looking inside of himself. But the person started looking in the mirror. Intelligence is the ability to differentiate. It is needed when we have a body, when we have an understanding of ourselves. We have to understand the difference. What's good for me, what's bad. The world is a complicated thing. So I can come across some really big problems, and I have to understand the bad and good things. Starting from the age of 5 years old, kids have to use the intelligence, the unmanifested. So for example, our desires, it's an unmanifested form of activity. In a thin form, everything is existing in the desires. So materialistic desire It's an unmanifested form of activity. I have it inside of me, but it's not manifested yet. No one knows about it. Even I do not know which of my desires will get materialized. See, if there's a small kid, he has a lot of unmanifested desires in terms of communicating with the opposite gender, but they're not manifested. 10 senses and the mind. So we have 10 senses of mind, and the 11th one is mind. So the mind unites all these senses because it's controlling everything. So 2 groups of senses. Karmendriya. It's hands, legs. Karma means activity. So feelings for activity. Hands, legs, tongue as an organ for speaking, anus and genitals. So these are the organs, the action organs. And then the organs for understanding, for realizing something. So view, taste. So tongue is needed by us as an activity organ. So then the eyes, the ears, the taste, the feelings. Am I missing something? I've mentioned touching. So these organs go Gyanendriya. So 5 senses are realizing, and 5 organs, 5 senses giving the feedback. So if I understand something, I give a feedback using my tongue, my actions. So that's how I combine all these senses. The mind is above them, but it's controlling all these senses. It's happening automatically. We don't even think about it, it just happens naturally. So we see something, the legs start walking, hands are taking something, tongue is tasting something. But it's not so simple. So there are 5 senses of objects. 5 objects. So if we have eyes, we have to have light and shape. If we have ears, we have to have sound. This is our object. The form, the shape, the smell, the surface. So all these exists in order for us to perceive all this. And also desire and hatred. So desire, what is meant here is not about unmanifested desires, but what is desirable right now. So if I see something and I think it's tasty, I want to do it. Hatred is something that I do not desire. It's unpleasant. So it's more of like pleasant and not pleasant. Pleasant creates desires, unpleasantness creates hatred. So as a consequence, we have happiness and distress. So soul doesn't just understand all these notions as desire, hatred, happiness and distress. It's just our body. So according to our feelings, we can call it either happiness or distress. So the aggregate of all these material elements, we've talked about it already. The life symptoms, well, it's prana movements like the eyes winking. It's just the symptoms of life. This is not the life itself. So even computer can do some operations, just like a person is thinking something. So these are just the symptoms, life symptoms. Like the reflectory things. It's just a reflection. So we can't do it without being in a high state of consciousness. Just like the robots, they can emanate some life symptoms, but this is not life itself. So the conviction, it gives us the force to achieve something. So we have to overcome all these hatreds and sadness. So we have to have some strength So determine. We have to determine what to do. But it's not consciousness. All that we've read about is just mode of ignorance. So like a firefly, it leads to a fire, but this is mode of ignorance. It doesn't know where it's going. And so modern people, back when I was young, spiritual things for them was going to listen to some good music. So this was spirituality for them. They used to go to Philharmonia. So the modern styles of music were not considered to be spiritual back in the time. Others thought that going to a restaurant to get with the family and to have some nice food with some nice music, so they considered that thing to be spiritual. So they used to go to Philharmonia and movie theaters or theaters. So this was kind of an elevated thing in the Soviet times, just like the Ostankino. I haven't been inside, but there's like a kind of a rotating element on top of it. So I asked people what it was. Oh, so I was told there's a restaurant up there. So if you just want to eat over there on the top, it's already considered to be a spiritual thing. Some other people that I used to meet, they were doing some black magic. So they thought of it as a spiritualism. They were, arranging some plates at night in order to communicate with some spirits. But what we are reading here is included in the material nature. So our mission is to differentiate spirit and matter. So all material elements are given to us, and this is the whole universe actually, and all this material elements. So from the 8th to 12th text, so 5 texts, it is explained what the knowledge is outside of the gross elements. So it's not about a deep analysis of all these elements. Kṛṣṇa is referring to the Vedanta Sutra. If you want to go there, yes, you can Vedanta Sutra, but now there's something different. We're not going to go really deep into this topic, so we just have to try to differentiate spirit from matter. So the 24 elements, not material elements. So 5 texts, and I will give you the translation. Listen carefully, then probably you'll be reading the commands. It's quite big, and each command is also described so that we don't mix it up with something material. So the first one is humility, the first spiritual quality. If humility were a materialistic quality, combination of materialistic elements, so in that way, we could create a pail, taking which could lead us to humility. You see, it's not a big deal. So you're angry at something, or easy, like, to react, take a pill. Or you need some love? Okay, there is a pill like that. Just take it. So that's how it works. Oh, so you have some adrenaline in the blood, they say? Okay, and you start behaving like an insane man. So materialistic people, they just look at your reflections, at your reactions. So they're just making a robot out of you. Well, yeah, there are some pills taken by really insane people. They give them this pill, and person becomes, having this humility. So if you want someone to respect you, you take out your gun and you say, respect me. Well, of course, people will become very, having this humility. So there are ways of reaching it, of reaching this state. But here, something different. Humility is the nature of our soul. Then the absence of pride, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a true spiritual master. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the sixth one is the approaching your true spiritual master. If you become a letter of these elements, so before you go in for the spiritual master, first of all, you have to start with the humility, understanding and realizing that you're not the only one here. So you have to work with your false ego, and this is a matter of your consciousness. So you have to really understand this fact. You have to admit this fact, that the God is higher, is the supreme. He is supreme. But if you say no, there's a lot of pride in you. The false ego of yours is too big. So why don't you allow God to be present as well? Well, you live. You are a living being. So why can't God be a living being just like you? So people are concentrated on these material things. So, until we understand that we are so small, we're so tiny in this universe, that we mean nothing. We are weak, we are not protected. Only after this, you will say, where's my protection, where is God? So then, cleanliness. When everyone is trying to reach fame, everyone wants to be famous. So non-violence. Well, you can make people to be not violent, but if you're in a prison, that's when it works. So you see how we have to reach it in the material world? So we have to use all these methods. But it's a material world. So then we go next. Cleanliness. We have to be clean. All these regulating principles. Steadiness. You have to meditate every day. Self-control. You have to have a daily routine. Renunciation of the objects of sense gratification. So you have to just lead a healthy life. Absence of false ego. So we have to do it consciously. So it has to be free. So this is the energy of spirit. When we do it as a free choice, we just have to make the right choice, and that's when the spiritual life begins. The perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. Well, we can do it partially. We can say, well, yes, it's all evil. Death and aging and disease. Well, we have to scrutinize it. Well, of course, it's a good thing when someone is born. We throw some celebrations because a person can understand. But when we can understand that this person will die, so it will age and die, but we are born for sufferings, for death, and for aging. It all begins with the very birth. So the point is that we have to get rid of this cycle. We have to get out of this cycle, birth and death. Then detachment. Absence of bondages to children, wife, home, and the rest. Absence of bondages. So what is meant is that the extra bondages, extra attachment. So we have to get attached to Kṛṣṇa. If we are connected more or attached more to dog than to Kṛṣṇa, it is called an extra attachment. Of course we have to love our dog, but first we have to fall in love with God. even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides these, whatever there may be is ignorance. So now it opens up before us. So what is knowledge? It's a quality. So now modern understanding, knowledge is an information. But everyone can possess information, even a rascal, bad guy. So it's not a knowledge. It's not yet a knowledge. Knowledge is a quality of a person. So if we accumulate of them, so the major one is the devoted servant to Kṛṣṇa. So this is the most important quality. If we serve Kṛṣṇa, if we are really devoted to Him, so we also have to serve to all the living beings. That's why we have this compassion and patience and well-being and the virtue. Well, the philosophical search for the absolute truth is the last quality. So a lot of people, they start from here. I want to understand the absolute truth. So there's a ladder in order to reach it. From this point of view, so there are not many searchers like this, not many people that are trying to reach the absolute truth going up along all this ladder. It's not like you're sitting at the fireplace, smoking a cigar and thinking about all this philosophy. So remember the book written by Radhanath Swami, Journey Home. Remember how he went to India? How many problems he had? He was drowning in this sands, moving sands in Ganga. He got a whole bunch of diseases, but he kept searching. He kept searching for for the truth. So that was the real search for the absolute truth. But this man probably has gotten all these qualities in his previous life. So this book is very popular. Journey Home. Even Barack Obama, he got this book and he shook Radhanath Swami's hand. So there are not many people like him. People searching for the truth. It's not like you're talking about it, having a glass of champagne. So these are the people looking for the absolute truth. They are going through a lot of things. So the time is up. I think we're going to stop here at the 12th verse. So now let's get to questions. So in Bhagavad-gītā it says that Kṛṣṇa did not expect Arjuna to refuse to take the action. He thought that Arjuna will start fighting. So Kṛṣṇa has all the qualities of him. If he didn't expect Arjuna to start fighting, it doesn't mean that he didn't know that. So there's a temple in Vrindavan. There's a huge picture in there. So it's all in flowers. Radha and Kṛṣṇa are portrayed there, having different clothes, and no one knows who they are. Actually, they changed. So we're talking about Kṛṣṇa and Radharani. So Kṛṣṇa is changing his clothes, and you can't know who he is. So this unknown person is asking Arjuna about himself. So that's a lila, it's just a game. So the locals, Sadhu, that's a very nice place. So if you see this image, you will like it. So the locals, they are really into this life. They are living this life. They are searching this Vedic knowledge. So I asked one sadhu, so there's Krishna and Radha on this picture, so don't other people know that this is Radha and Krishna on the picture? And sadhu said, of course they know. Well, they just love each other and they're just playing. Of course they know who they are. They know everything. They love each other. That's why they're playing. They're pretending not to know who Krishna and Radha are on this picture. They're just little. So what Krishna organized there at the Kurukshetra, it was just a lila. He did it on purpose, as if Arjuna went into the mode of ignorance. Krishna just wanted to have good communication, just a friendly communication with Arjuna. It was just a lila. So all this Mahabharata, all this battle, it was all the purpose of creating Bhagavad-gītā, of giving us this knowledge. So if you want to be really devoted to Krishna, lose all the attachment, get rid of the attachments, what should I start with? The process is quite simple. Do not get concentrated of your misdeeds. You don't have to be concentrated on the purpose, on the aim. Concentrate on what you can already do and do it happily. This is quite simple. If you think of, oh, the happiness is over there, it's so far from me, so that person is lucky, I'm unlucky, so don't get too much concentrated on it. So don't look around. So Guru is supposed to fix your serving, not just to find the disadvantages that you have. He already sees everything. So chant mantra, read Bhagavad-gītā. So just understand how to extract this taste. Think of it. So if you're unlucky, it doesn't mean anything. That's okay. If you have a desire to serve, you will reach your aim step by step. You read Bhagavad-gītā, that's all you need. You understand that this is a medicine for our mind, for our intelligence, for our activity, for our soul. You just have to read Bhagavad-gītā all your life. And undoubtedly, you will get a very good result. You're already getting this result, but if you compare yourself to someone else and concentrate on your being unlucky, it will not lead you to anywhere. So what are the things that we have to regulate? How to be protected from the mode of ignorance? Well, probably it comes from another topic, where it says there the person should regulate his work, rest, eating, sleeping, and his own yoga. 5 things. If you regulate all these things, he will start feeling happiness. Work, well, it's just it's a separate topic. It's a lecture. You can find this text in Bhagavad-gītā, read the commands, and think about it. Dwell on it. Seminars are good. What we have to do, the teachers do it for us instead of us. But don't just rely on the seminars. You have to understand how to think. This is work. Thinking is work. It's not just any kind of activity. Work means a useful activity. So look at yourself. Are you useful for the society? So start from this. Dwell on it. Contemplate on it. So in addition, the work should be done truthfully, sincerely, with honor. So think about your work. The rest. Is it just going to some nightclubs or something? So what is rest for you? What are the places that you really have rest at? As a spiritual person, as an elevated person, how do you have rest? Rest means being in cleanliness, in cleanliness. Being clean, it refers to everything, clothes and food and relations with people, and the principle of rest itself. So also contemplate on it. So what is rest for you? What is it to be clean for you? What is it to be honorable for you? To be honest? Of course, if you listen to all these seminars, it will give you a lot of knowledge, but you also have to think for yourself. You have to turn on. You have to understand how many hours you have to sleep. You're not supposed to be sleeping in dirty clothes, on a dirty linen, in a room full of cigarette smoke. If there's some unfinished food in the room, you can't sleep there anyway because it's considered to be a dirty place. So if everything is clean around you, your thin body will be healthy. If you're thinking about material things too much, of course your sleep will not be very good. But sleep is essential, work is essential, rest is essential. Food, oh, that's a big topic. There can be a big treatise on this topic. So of course, there's not supposed to be meat and eggs and fish in your life, the products of death. You're not supposed to be eating meat, fish and eggs. It's not a good thing. But everything that encompasses it is your mind, yoga. So we read today that yoga is the mind control. Any kind of yoga, the mission is just controlling your mind. So that's what yoga is. Every day you have to control your mind, meditate. You have to elevate your mind. Today a little bit, then tomorrow a little more, and then step by step you have to be elevating yourself, working, resting, sleeping, eat. So the mind is supposed to go up vertically, but never going down. So the question is, can I develop these merits in myself if I don't have a high purpose? Well, there's an interest for the truth. If a person is living as a searcher for the truth, he can just stay in one place. He's moving here and there. The work does not satisfy him, just like hippies. The researching people, they were called hippies. And then the rest of the people, they just got the lifestyle of hippies and they perverted everything. So initially hippies, they were just searching people, they were looking for the truth. They just didn't understand where to find the truth. That's why they started using drugs. And all the rest of the people that got this lifestyle, they just started enjoying their lives, taking drugs. So I've seen one of these hippies in Jagannath-pur. There was an American using drugs there, and now he looks like sadhu. He never leaves this place. That's the person that was looking for truth. But if you live in peace already, making some money, sometimes they think something about the creation of the world, they have some interest, they can already start searching for the truth. But if you are really searching for the truth, that means that you are already there. You are in the labyrinth, and there's no way out of it. If you are in a Krishna's consciousness, you are about to fight Maya, the illusion. It's either you get killed by Maya, or you will overcome it. That's what the war is. So yeah, of course we have some examples of people falling. If you are living in peace with Maya, it doesn't matter for you, it doesn't matter for Maya, if it's controlling you. But here, if you want to go up, if you make a wrong step, you just fall down, because you're in a battle with Maya. That's where you have to go. That's for the people looking for the truth. You have to be really cautious, just like while walking on the ice. One incorrect move, you're going to cut yourself with the razor. One incorrect move and you're going to fall out from a mountain. So that's the thing. So there's a question, japa, is it my duty? So don't look in japa for the higher sense. It's just, well, you just have to do it. You have to do it in order to get cleaner. You have to chant mantra in order to get cleaner. Until your mind is okay, you're asking about it. You're asking about how to go further. If you stop chanting mantra, you will stop asking questions. So there is a difference. So don't complain, everything's okay, just chant mantra. If the field of action is your body, so in what way does it practically change the way I act in this life? So how does the field of activity influence the knower? It's a good question. Conditioned living being and a liberated living being, the soul. A liberated soul does not live within the field of activity. It uses it in order to serve. It's not the enjoyer. You see, the enjoyer and the one who realizes it, the one who understands that there's another enjoyer in my body, he gets out of this field. It means that I'm doing all these actions for him to enjoy, not for me. I'm not doing it for myself. That's when I get out of this field of activity. If our activity, all those desires and feelings, are dedicated to serving the super soul in my heart, we get out of this field of activity. That's a short answer. So every person is living Krishna's consciousness, but still he is offering the food to Kṛṣṇa. Can I do that? Well, of course you can if you still love Kṛṣṇa. Even if you're inside Krishna's consciousness or outside, you have to always constantly read Bhagavad-gītā. Is it enough just to ask questions to my own guru, or is it enough just to be serving? Well, sometimes if you feel really not satisfied, if you're doing a lot of things, a lot of serving, but you're still not satisfied, well, in this case, I think you have to ask a question to your guru, to your spiritual master. In ISKCON it says that every disciple can be working under the control of the people, of the devotees, together with him. So, question about persuasion. Persuasion depends on the material circumstances. Belief does not depend on the circumstances. Persuasion is materialistic. So I get some experience, material experience. Like I got a fiber or something. Now I know, I'm convinced that I cannot touch it. So also, if, say, my tongue, I cannot control my tongue, my stomach, my genitals. So tongue gives me the conviction that my stomach will tell me that, okay, I have to be full. That's where my persuasion is coming from. It's not right. It's just dictated by my stomach. If I'm talking about some kind of economical programs and agriculture and banking, so we have to develop everything. So this is my stomach talking. These are our persuasion. Tongue is telling that I have to enjoy life. because I can control this organ and it's just created for getting some joy out of this life. And genitals are just the same, just for the joy. So these are coming from the materialistic, material body. These are called persuasion. But when we're talking to soul, it's our belief. So belief controls everything. That's when we have a belief in God. It controls everything. So this is a spiritual faith. What is above faith? The faith, it's a spiritual element. It's absolute. You can't really say what's under or above it. But in the material world, we all start from faith. That's the initial step. And up to the very top of the faith. So this is the love to God. This is the perfection of life. But when we're just starting, that's a trust and respect in the very beginning. Trust for God, this is faith. It's called faith. Above it is communication with devotees. That is strengthening our belief. Higher is our practice. And higher is a pure heart. It's a very strong faith. You see, this is the formation of our faith, but this is the material gradation. In the spiritual world, it's absolute. There's no difference. It's absolute. It's just in material world we have this gradation of the faith formation. So if we could get rid of the false ego, how would it look like? If there's no false ego, there are no sufferings. Can you ask, is there no pain? Yeah, there is pain, but you don't suffer. Just by reading Bhagavad-gītā, can I just mentally help my daughter create her own family? Just by reading Bhagavad-gītā? Mentally? Well, I think somehow it'll work. You can't actually observe it. I mean, the scientists cannot observe it, but in real life, people feel this connection when someone is praying for someone else. My mother used to tell me about it, and she tells about it all the time. When I just started my spiritual practice, she said that I feel it. I feel that I also get this benevolence. So she said, you're thinking about me. And I said, yes, I am thinking of you. So she said she felt it. Can we say that if a person considers himself as a liberated person, that he thinks that all the decisions are coming actually from him? A person cannot get liberated by himself. He can wish to be a doctor, but it doesn't mean that he's going to become a doctor instantly. You have to have a proper education. You have to study. If I consider myself to be a liberated person, it doesn't mean that I am free already. It's a false understanding. No, only the Supreme Lord gets us free. He is the only one who can get us all liberated. But you know, Münchhausen, remember this story? He got himself out of the cannon. Probably, sometimes it happens, and probably you will have a success in it. So how is the knowledge developing from inside? Well, just cut it open and you have a whole heap, a whole pile of knowledge in it. Knowledge is like a sun. You just see it, and that's it. Suddenly you start seeing it and hearing it. So there are a lot of gratitudes to you here in the commands. So there's a question. It says that in every cell of our body there's jiva. That's true. You know. Also, she's proposing to spread prasadam in pharmacies. Oh, that sounds to be a good idea. So feelings. in a mode of benevolence, well-being, well, everybody else does, but he gets knowledge. There are some people that absorb something, but they cannot see anything. If you have eyes, it doesn't mean that you can see. So let me give you an example. So I was told this story by one of the old devotees. So he was telling this story. He was walking on the beach early in the morning. He was chanting japa. And there was a young man running just opposite. So I just didn't pay attention to him and I just passed by. So I kept on walking. There was an old man running towards me. So I just cast a view on him and I just continued walking. Didn't pay a lot of attention. But then I saw a walking old man with a stick. Well, and then I saw suddenly, I saw all the phases of my life. I didn't see it before, but now I understand. These were all the phases of my life, stages. So you see, we see everything with our eyes, but still we don't see it. We don't pay attention to that. You said that we can understand who God is based on a scientific point of view, but is it really so? So we are talking about the material science. Of course, there will be some frames of knowledge, but we all have to start with faith. Well, we have to understand, we have to make it clear in terms of terminology. When we're talking about science, material science. So who knows how this world works? Can you know that? Like, prove it scientifically. Say it to me. Who knows how it works? It's all based only on paternity and maternity. If there's no paternity and maternity, no one could survive. Throw out a kid just outside, and it's all be over. And this is science. Study this science. So that's the science that is studied by anyone. It's not been examined by anyone. So we have to examine how God is ruling this world, the way He's controlling it. So you said that in Krishna's consciousness it means fighting Maya. That's why a lot of people are afraid of going deeper into this consciousness. They think that without practice there will be no sufferings, probably. Well, you don't have to really fight Maya that much if you don't want to. You can just help us from the rear. You can just help the movement of Hare Kṛṣṇa. You have spread the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita so that just other people read Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to be that much devoted. You can just read Bhagavad Gita. It will happen to you spontaneously. So kids are not sent to the forefront of war. So take your time. So there's a question that we missed. It says that Jiva is living in Erma's cell. Am I responsible for each of my cells, body cells? Well, I'm not responsible for every cell of my body. Let them just live the way they do. These are all the questions for today. Thank you very much. So we are finishing for today. So now let's just sing some kirtan.